For Joe Azalina, I'm Derek Gano. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Today, Joe, we round out our division previews.
Yes, and I apologize for the for the technical difficulties. As you'll see, I'm a little smaller today, so yeah, we had some problems on my trusty computer, but we'll hopefully get that fixed in the next couple days. So I'm doing it on my iPad today, and Derek has been very patient with me. So anyway, yes, we have a really interesting division. I think this is not so much the AL East, but I think the AL West has some good teams, and even the bottom teams are still decent enough. But this rounds it out, like you said. It's a perfect way to say it. And you have your Mariners, Derek, who I who I have to say have some young upcoming players, and they have some good veterans sprinkled in there. So I always question the way they go with their pitching, but we'll talk about all that in this
We'll talk
episode.
about it.
So yep. So kicking it back to you for our first team.
Okay, well, let's get it started with everyone's darling, I suppose, the Houston Astros. Last year, the Houston Astros finished second in the division, actually, at 29-31. They were one of two teams that made the playoffs at under 500. But they made it all the way to the ALCS, where they lost to the Tampa Bay Rays 4-3. Coach Dusty Baker comes back for his second season. He was 29-31. The additions for the Houston Astros include Ryan Stanek, relief pitcher, as well as Pedro Baez from the champion Dodgers, another relief pitcher, Jason Castro, catcher, and Jake Odorizzi finally made a team, and that is for the Houston Astros, starting pitcher. Some subtractions include George Springer, Brad Peacock in the bullpen, Robert Ozuna, Josh Reddick, and Chris Devenski. Joe, for quite a few years now, the Houston Astros have been the top of although I guess you could say Oakland as well. But with the strong nucleus that they've had, they only lost one this offseason, and that was George Springer. How do we think that affects them in winning this division, or are they still the team to beat, do we think?
Well, Houston's kind of always been powered by Altuve and Bregman, Correa. I mean, you look at some of their stats. Correa knocked in 25 last year. Bregman, even though his home runs were down, has still knocked in 22. The one guy to look out for, though, is Kyle Tucker, the left fielder. He had 42 RBIs and a 268 batting average. Yordan Alvarez is a pretty good hitter. Yuli Gurriel had a pretty big couple years. But the new guy, Chas McCormick, is somebody to watch out for, who was at the training site last year. And Maldonado will be okay. Yeah, your original question was about Springer. They're going to hurt because they're going to need production where he gave it to them, and he's a really good hitter. He's a 290 guy, sometimes a 300 guy, and he's going to get you. I bet you hits about 15 home runs in the Toronto lineup because he's got good bats around him. But these guys got to step up. They got to hit. They got to score runs, you know. Don Baylor's a good manager, but he's also had good teams, and this team kind of lacks in their lineup, I think, a little bit in a couple positions. So,
now they really struggled a little bit last year. Those numbers for Bregman and Altuve are even a little low, but they have everyone back, and it probably would have hurt a little bit if they would have lost Michael Brantley as well. He was someone else who was maybe supposed to go, but they probably signed him back after Springer left. But you said it. They go as Altuve, Correa, Bregman go. Kyle, you mentioned Kyle Tucker is going to be a big part of this offense this year. Probably someone who's actually projected for 30 homers and 23 stolen bases. That's a ton. But yeah, how are they filling that center field position? McCormick and Miles Straw is probably the other one. He's a really fast, probably going to hit around 8 or 9. They're not going to get a ton out of their catchers. They never really have. So they'll probably split Castro against the righties, Maldonado against the lefties, maybe. So, but always strong power hitters are Houston. The bench, you mentioned McCormick, Aledis Miss Diaz. I remember him from St. Louis. He could be someone who's the utility guy. Joe, when we look at the rotation, everyone is right-handers since Valdez actually went down. Well, let me say that real quick. They actually have several injuries, especially in the pitching staff to take note of. Obviously, Verlander had Tommy John surgery, so he's going to be out for the whole year. Forrest Whitley, one of their top minor league guys, is also out due to Tommy John surgery. Framber Valdez fractured finger, so he probably isn't going to get surgery, they said, but still going to be out for a month or two. And then Josh James had hip surgery, so he's out for the first few months. But Joe, when you look at their rotation, obviously bringing in Odorizzi after Valdez got hurt, what do you think about their rotation there? All right-handed, but
Right. They need Valdez back to make it a little bit more formidable. They need him to be from the left side, give him a different look. Zach Greinke's their ace. Yeah. He's older now. He's the guy that's gonna have to go out and give them innings. Zach Greinke's been the guy over his career, though hasn't pitched good in big markets. Houston's not what you call a big market. It's not Boston. It's not Philly. It's not LA. He'd probably be okay. He's pitched there a few years now. McCullers is probably your 2, I would say, right now.
Yeah.
He had an ERA of 3.93. And then I would say if Valdez was there, I'd put Valdez 3, but Odorizzi is going to come in to be the 3. And he's going to be a stable 3 because he gives you a lot of innings. You know how much I like him.
I know he's going to not quite be there because he has to ramp up his innings a little bit. So right. He might actually be at the training site for the first week or 2, but eventually.
I bet you he's there mid-April or late April. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Javier is going to be interesting to watch. He had a 3.48, and then your Quidey, who really did well in the postseason, 2.73. Yeah. Their bullpen's going to have to be big for them because I think these guys are going to struggle with innings and the length of the season. Look for Joe Smith, and Noe Paredes, 3.05 ERA. Ryan Presley, the closer. You mentioned Josh James and Raleigh, another lefty out of the pen. So, Houston's got a lot against them, Derek. It'll be interesting to see where their over-unders at. But we'll see.
Well, they did bring in Stanek from Miami in the bullpen, and they brought in actually Pedro Baez, but he's out right currently due to COVID, so he'll jump right in there. I would think Josh James jumps into the bullpen as well. Yeah, the bullpen doesn't really strike me as completely strong, but Blake Taylor, I'm not sure if you mentioned him, lefty. He had a 2.18 ERA in 20 innings last year. Paradis had a 3.05 ERA in 20 innings. And then Presley has been pretty good as a late inning guy, probably going to be the closer this year. I don't know, Joe. I don't know. Something just tells me that when fully healthy, their rotation is one of the most might have the most depth in the AL West, but without Valdez, without obviously Verlander is out for the whole year, without Josh James as an option. Those guys are good, but Javier Urquidy, Bilek is probably going to start as the number 5 until Odorizzi gets in there. I think they're fine. It's a fine back end of the rotation, but they have a lot to prove there, only being there for pretty much one season. When we look at the two prospects that I wrote down here. Here are two more pitching prospects that they could potentially bring up. Again, only going to really focus on guys who are going to be up this year. Luis Garcia, I have as a right-handed pitcher, number 6 in terms of MLB.com on the team. He has a fading changeup, low 90s fastball. Maybe will turn into a multi-inning reliever if needed. And Tyler Ivey is the other one I wrote down. Another right-handed pitcher, number 10 in terms of the farm system. He misses a lot of bats. Also, a low 90s fastball with a lot of life, and he has a lot of deception in his when he pitches. So, Joe, the over-under for the Houston Astros is 87.5, which is, I will say, the highest in the AL West right now. 87.5 over-under.
Wow, this is already a tough one. I actually really believe the lineup is going to come through. I think guys like Altuve and Correa are going to lead. Bregman's going to have a big year. Maybe they just get enough pitching. I'm going to say 86. I'm going to say 86 for Houston.
Yes, I said very slightly under.
Yeah. I do like their lineup.
86, 87. I think that's the number for Houston. Which will bring us to the Los Angeles Angels. Last year, the Los Angeles Angels finished 4th in the division at 26-34. Coach Joe Maddon comes back for his second season. A lot of big names in the coaching staffs on these teams. Joe Maddon, second season, 26-34. Some additions for the LA Angels. Jose Iglesias, shortstop, now come in replace of Aldrin Simmons. Raisel Iglesias from the Reds. Alex Cobb. Dexter Fowler came in to probably play an outfield spot. Kurt Suzuki. Jose Quintana, all coming in as additions. And some subtractions. No Ramirez, but no Joe. No, Ramirez was actually just cut by the Reds from that trade to for Raisel Iglesias, and he just re-signed with the Angels, so he is now back with the Angels.
Doors never closed. That's funny.
Aldrin Simmons, also subtraction. Kanan Middleton, middle reliever, and Hansel Robles, a middle reliever. Joe, I'm going to get on a soapbox a little bit here. A little trivia for you. Do you know when or how many years Mike Trout has been in the league?
All right. I'm going to say, I actually remember the time the Angels won the World Series last. I thought you were going to ask me that question.
No.
I think Mike Trout was drafted in 2012.
His first year in the big leagues was 2011.
I was close.
Very close. I thought you might have got, because it was him and Harper at the same time, so I wasn't sure if you.
Well, the Philly thing, because he's from Jersey.
So this will be his 10th season in the major leagues. Do you know how many times the Los Angeles Angels have made the playoffs in the last 10 years? Actually, it's once.
Oh, sorry, one time.
Playoffs. In 2014, they were swept in the ALDS. They lost 3-0.
It's a disgrace, Derek. It's a disgrace.
How is it possible that you have the best play? Without a doubt, there's really no question amongst anyone who watches baseball. The best player in Major League Baseball. He actually has the same amount of MVP awards as they do playoff games in his tenure.
It's three
unbelievable.
MVPs,
and he's played 3 games in the playoffs. So that's all I have to say, Joe. But let's get started. But let's start with Mike Trout, the best player, and the fact that they almost refuse to give him any help. And how I think it's frustrating as a Mariners fan. I can't imagine what it is for an Angels fan
Right.
to not get that. Anyways, you go ahead.
Well, listen, first of all, for the people in the Lehigh Valley, because our show is based here in the Lehigh Valley,
Yes.
both of us growing up in Palmer Township and Forks Township, respectively. Manager Joe Madden is from Hazleton, PA. So I want to throw that out there. He's really from and he went to Lafayette College, which is also awesome.
Yes.
I go by there all the time for work. That's where I have to go. So it's interesting to say that. Mike Trout might be the best player we ever see. I don't know if I'm going out on a limb
All
there.
around.
I mean, he
Yeah.
right, exactly, all encompassing the 5 tools of baseball. He does them exceptionally well.
Mhm.
And I've always liked him, not just being a Milford, New Jersey guy, because he grew up there. He's a huge Phillies fan growing up and still has Eagles tickets, season tickets. He goes back. His wife, this is a neat story quickly. His wife, Derek, is a school teacher. She told him, I'm not leaving my kids. She's not even living with him in California. How crazy is that? So he loves Anaheim. He loves not being in a, like a Zach Greinke. He loves being out by the beach, I'm sure, and no cares in the world. This guy might be the best player ever to play baseball and ever to win a World Series, though, because I don't see it coming, Derek. So we'll get into it, though. David Fletcher's a nice young player, second baseman in .319 last year. Mike Trout behind him hitting second, 17 home runs, 46 RBIs. Anthony Rendon will definitely provide protection. Knocked in 31 last year. Shohei Ohtani. Is he DHing? Is he pitching? That's a bag of question marks. I mean,
he's doing both this year.
Doing both. Yep. So, that's going to be a huge story. Iglesias in their 5-hole. That's where it gets me a little bit. To me, he's not a 5 hitter. He's like a 2 hitter. I would even move him in. I would move him to 2, Trout to 3. I don't know.
It could
he's
be
a good player though,
as well.
And Upton had a good year last year. I saw he had a tough year last year. 2 years ago, he actually had 24 home runs. I want to say I saw that because somebody tried to trade him for me already in the first day of fantasy. But anyway, Joe Adell's a good name to look out for. Their bench is pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Jared Walsh, first baseman, hit 293, 26 ribbies. But when we get to it, talk about soapbox. This pitching staff is horrible. Like, they didn't even – you don't get Odorizzi. You don't even trade for, like, a Zach Eflin. Like, you try to go do some things. Like, come on. Like, you got – I don't even – I got to throw my pen. Like, this
yeah. Well, let me finish up the lineup. I'll get to that. But – I mean, I think, it could probably debated. This one could be debated, but Anthony Rendon may be a top 10, top 15 player in the major leagues as well. So you have 2 players in the top 15, and you can't even win. What do they have? How many wins they have? 26 last year?
Derek, he won a World Series. Rendon has a World Series ring.
So, I mean, you have a lot of veterans there now. You have Upton is there. He's 34, almost 34 years old. You have Pujols probably in the starting lineup. He's 41 years old. Dexter Fowler is now in the starting lineup, probably hitting 9th at 35 years old. The key, Kurt Suzuki, 37 years old, probably going to back up catch now.
Right.
The key, I think, is to this entire season is going to be Shohei Ohtani. They have him potentially getting 500 at bats, and if he can get 25 home runs, 15 steals or so, he may end up jumping up to the 2-hole or lead off. Who the heck knows? As well as they have him throwing around 100 innings. Now,
it's a lot.
The Angels they're also doing what the Mariners are doing, and they're having a 6-man rotation. So some guys in the pitching rotation there, and that may also to let Ohtani get some times in between starts. But you look at their rotation. Dylan Bundy, who actually had a pretty decent season last year, but before that, playing for Baltimore, they traded him away because of how bad he was pitching. Andrew Heaney, good lefty, decent lefty. Alex Cobb, all right. Jose Quintana,
It's the Orioles.
okay. And Griffin Canning is probably another one, a young pitcher for them. Every one of these guys, Joe, is probably no better than a 3 or 4 starter. We'll see what Ohtani can potentially give you, but I don't think Heaney, Cobb, Quintana, I don't think any of them are better than a 3, 4, or 5 starter. And you can't do that. You go get a top of the line. We both mentioned Trevor Bauer would have been perfect for this team.
Yeah.
Because he could have been
Yeah.
a number one who they, if God forbid they make the a wild card game or something like that, they're going to have to face a team's ace, and they're throwing out Dylan Bundy when another team like maybe the Blue Jays are throwing out a Ryu, or maybe the Rays are throwing out a Glass. Now they got to throw out Dylan Bundy, and I don't think that does not compare, Joe, to these other teams.
No, I totally agree with you. I love the passion from you, even being a Mariners fan. It fires you up because the Angels, they should win. This is an organization that's won. We said it in 06 or 05.
Yeah,
they won it and beat Barry Bonds and the Giants. You know, I remember that World Series. I will say, before getting to the pitching for a minute again, I have a really cool thing I thought about with Justin Upton. One of my good friends who is a baseball player at Maryland Eastern Shore played against Brian Tchaikovsky, Notre Dame's own, played against Justin Upton in college. And both brothers, he said they were phenomenal from Virginia. He said he never saw guys so fast. So just throwing out there because Upton being on the Angels, I just wanted to give that a little bit of a plug there. So, yeah, Andrew Heaney, Dylan Bundy, no. Like, this is Mike Trout, the poor guy. Like, what a great player. And we said
fine as 3-4s, you know, but
yeah,
not 1-2.
But Derek, Odorizzi was sitting out there.
But is Odorizzi any better than what they're going to give you, though?
Well, but just give you arms that have experience. Like, you even said it. Who's Patrick Sandoval, Derek? Trade for Kyle Hendricks. Like, Madden was a Cub, wasn't he? Get in there. Tell your GM, your boss, like, get me Hendricks. Go get Brandon Woodruff. I mean, there's got to be ways to get this team to be a better baseball team. You know? There's names out there. They could go to Miami. They trade everybody.
I definitely foresee them because I think that they're right in it. I mean, you'll see in the numbers that they have, the over-under numbers for wins, they are supposed to be right up there with the other two.
Great.
But if they just trade for a stud, I mean, if I just think off the top of my head, could maybe a Kyle Hendricks if the Cubs aren't playing well. Maybe Herman Marquez if the Rockies aren't playing well. They're known to trade.
Kyle Freeland. Well, yeah. I mean, they do too. Yeah, that's true.
Well,
the Padres got 8 starters. Go get Joe Musgrove just to get another arm. Yeah, they're missing the boat here.
Let's look at their bullpen real quick here. They did trade for Raisel Iglesias, who he's a stud closer for, although he's kind of blows up sometimes.
He's
Mike Mayers is probably their 8th inning guy. He had a solid 2.1 ERA last year in 30 innings. Junior Guerra, he's a very pretty older player, 36 years old, 3.04 ERA.
I know that name.
Year.
Guerra.
Probably you look at No Ramirez. He's not on my list here, but he'll probably join back into the middle of that. I mean, that's a solid bullpen. They have a solid bullpen, right, Joe? And nothing that's going to overwhelm you, but.
Yeah, Alex Claudio is another name I know, right? He's a guy that's decent. I don't know if you mentioned Rivera. I don't know much about him. I did look down Felix Pena. Looks to be a young guy. They're just these names aren't jumping out at you. The one thing I will bring your attention to, though, is they have a couple. I don't know if Reed Detmers makes your list for the prospects. He's 27 years old, though. He's got a lot of potential, they said. Might be a guy you want to bring up this year. And Jose Alberto Rivera. That's who we're talking about in the pen now, right-hander. And Chris Rodriguez. maybe they need some young guys to step up. That could be the other thing, they're thinking, get some young guys to step up. Derek, where does Brandon Marsh fall on your list? He's a 23-year-old outfielder that sounds to be pretty good. Is he on the top 100 of prospects?
I didn't write him in because I don't think he's going to be quite this year. But yeah, him and Joe Adell are actually going to be they sent Joe Adell down. I would have to imagine he'll be back up in the next month or two. There's probably just not too much room for him right now with Fowler out there and Trout, obviously. But yes, look for Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh, two of their top prospects, to come up very soon. Marsh probably next year, though.
Gotcha.
Especially if Adell comes up. The one guy I will mention, did we mention him already? Oh yeah, he's actually someone who's potentially to be in the bullpen right now. Their number 9 prospect, Chris Rodriguez, upper 90s fastball, and he has a sinking 2-seamer. So he could potentially be someone who's pretty dangerous, young arm out there. Joe, the number for the Angels is 83.5.
Wow.
About well, I'll go first this time. Only fair.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh man, that's tough.
They're all around the same. Again, I'm gonna say slightly over this time. Give me maybe 84, 85. I'm gonna go for the Angels. What do you think?
I don't like their pitching at all. So I do like some of their lineup, but I don't like it enough. I'm gonna go like 79. I'm gonna go 79 for Anaheim.
Okay.
Yeah, or LA. Sorry. Yeah, we're going under there. Yeah, I'm going there.
So we have the 3 leaders.
Derek, that brings us to a very interesting team.
Yeah, the 3 leaders of this rotation up first, and the next one is the Oakland Athletics. They finished first in the division last year at 36-24, but they lost 3-1 to the Houston Astros in the ALDS. Bob Melvin comes back for his 11th season at 767 and 688. Boy, oh boy. Some additions for the Oakland Athletics. Elvis Andrus comes over from the Texas Rangers, shortstop. Jed Lowry makes his return after doing nothing for the Mets. Sergio Romo is joining the bullpen. Trevor Rosenthal joins the bullpen. And Mitch Moreland is going to come over to play a little DH first base. Subtractions, Chris Davis is finally gone for the Big Bopper. Marcus Semien was a very good shortstop for him. He is gone. Mike Minor, Liam Hendricks, Joaquim Soria, Rob Grossman, Tommy LaStella, all gone. Joe, that's a lot of names, a lot of big names there. Semien, Hendricks, Tommy LaStella was a very big part of the team last year. Robbie Grossman, good 4th outfielder. What did you see? Did the Oakland Athletics scare you a little bit this year? Do we still think that, Beanball, they're going to be right above there again?
Well, I do like Lariano in center field. He's a good outfielder. He can hit the ball. He's been posting 300 averages, or at least a little under that. But Scotty's okay in left. He's not a great hitter, but he's fast and he's a good 2-hitter. Matt Chapman, Matt Olson is where they live. They're the 2 guys that got to be run producers, home run hitters. Mark Canha is okay, pretty decent power, good RBIs. Elvis Andrus isn't very good anymore. He's older. He's not the Elvis Andrus that he was in Texas. No. So I don't think losing Semien's going to hurt them. Chad Pinder might see some time there short too. I don't know, Derek. I kind of see, and we'll get into it, but I don't like their rotation at all. I mean, they have 2 guys maybe, but the other guys are kind of hit or miss for me, I guess. Yeah, they're young there. So
I will say, I think they lost a lot of their speed, which is not good. Because
No,
Simeon was a guy who could get you some steals.
right.
Listella was even a guy who could. I mean, they were never really fast, but now I mean, this shows Mark Cana potentially leading off, and he's not going to get any steals.
No,
Um,
Liriano's going to lead off. He's a leadoff
yeah, that
hitter.
1-2
I
there.
mean, oh
Um,
yeah.
Chapman, Olson, big guys, Mitch Moreland, they're all kind of
Right,
big boppers. Man, and then they have Jed Lowry starting at second base, and Jed Lowry didn't even play last year, I don't think.
right, right.
So that's pretty tough. What did he do in 2019? He only had eight at bats in
He was
2019, so
hurt.
he hasn't played in
Yeah.
2 years.
No,
So
he's like
that's tough. And
in
then
the
so
abyss.
you're putting a lot on a 36-year-old Jed Lowry to play second base and a 32-year-old Elvis Andrus to play shortstop.
It's a lot to ask for.
It sounds like you're putting a lot on that rotation, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But
Right.
even now, the depth that they had on the bench is gone when they had Robbie Grossman, even a Chris Davis, who is someone who could come off the bench. There was something I remember how what was it? He hit 247 on the dot like 3 years in a row or something, but he hit like a ton of home runs, so you knew what you were getting out of him. I don't know. They really need Matt Olson. Really needs to hit. He strikes out a lot.
Yeah.
This is tough. It's tough. It's going to be tough on this offense, I think.
Well, we're gonna move to the pitching because I think
Yeah.
I don't know much about Chris Bassett, but when I see him as a number one, I'm a little scared. I feel like
he was very good last year.
What was his ERA?
He was a 2.29 last year.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that.
But in the year before that, he was a 3.81, so he's probably more of like a 3.5 guy. But
I like Minaya. I like Minaya a lot. He's a tough lefty. He has experience in the postseason now, and he'll help them. Frankie Montes might be, could this be his year? He's young and he's definitely. They got more promise in the Angels rotation, but then I don't like their lineup as much as I like the Angels. They don't have the guys, right? This is what we're getting with the West. You get one of the other.
Pretty much.
Jesus Luzardo, I liked him a lot in the playoffs. He might be the key to this rotation.
Yep.
It's funny they have him at 4, but I look at it and I'm like, it's only a number. He's going to start as many games as everybody else, hopefully. And AJ Puck, he was a very big draft pick, if I remember right.
Yes.
And I think he's from the University of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. But big arm, big arm. We'll see what he does. Derek, one name I know a lot about, and I know you'll know where I'm going here. The lefty and the closer, former Phillies left-handed reliever, Jake Diekman, who's had some good years in Oakland now. Of course, he goes out of Philly and he does well. That's the Philly narrative. But Jake Diekman did a good job there. Rosenthal and Romo will be really good guys to help him. That's a good back end. I don't know a lot about Weems or Smith, but I guess Caprolian, I do know he's pretty good. Oakland is what it is, I think, Derek. They're not going to have a lot of help coming up, probably.
And their bullpen was number 1 in terms of ERA last year, number 2 in WHIP.
But Hendricks was there,
right?
And that's a big part. They're missing.
You're replacing Hendricks with
Yeah.
Trevor Rosenthal. I know Trevor Rosenthal was pretty darn good last year. The year before that, he had a 13 ERA. So would he have gone back to the mark a little bit if we played 162 games? I don't know, but
probably.
You can't really deny. I think Jake Diekman only gave up 1 run all year.
He was ridiculous.
In 21.1 innings, he gave up 1 run, up 0.42 ERA. Still not as good as Devin Williams in Milwaukee, but they have some really good arms out there. Wendelken is another name out there. 1.8 ERA and 25 innings. Petit, Yasmiro Petit, I know can give you a couple extra innings if needed. 1.66 ERA in 21 innings. Kolarek, 0.95 and 19
Jeez.
innings, they're going to go back to the mean a little bit. And that's what worries me because I don't know. I agree. I think, and I'll jump to the rotation here real quick. I think you're right. I think it pretty much goes on Jesus Luzardo to see if he can take up the ace of this rotation. Because I think Bassett probably is more of a 2-3. Manaea, what are you getting out of Manaea? Now, I think Puck was sent down for the time being. So it looks like another guy I'm going to name here, Dalton Jeffries, is going to be starting off as the number 5. Ton of depth, though, Joe.
Yeah.
With those top 5, with Jeffries, Mike Fiers is currently hurt with hip inflammation, but eventually he's going to come back. AJ Puck can get some innings. Cole Irvin is another guy who they purchased from Philadelphia. Potential innings there. They have a lot of guys who can give you innings. But again, is there really, bear with me here, is there really a team in the AL West who has those dominant starters who you need to be able to go out there and say, I need to shut this team down? Because do the Mariners have that? Do even the Astros only have Zach Greinke, who's really someone who you see doing that? So do they really need that dominant
That's a
starters
good point
to win the division?
No, it's a really good point because if you look at last year's postseason, the White Sox bounced them because the White Sox were better hitters and they hit the pitching better. And I think Oakland knows. I mean, not that they did anything to improve themselves. They were another team that probably could use an Odorizzi or one of those starters, a Paxton even. It's like you said earlier, Moneyball. What are they going to do? That's why the movie was made, because they squeeze their pockets. They don't get big moves. So I think I'll stop there and just get ready for the over under after you do a couple prospects, because I'm ready for this one.
So let's start with it is Puck, right? AJ Puck.
Yeah, AJ Puck.
Left-handed pitcher. He's number 2 on the team. For some reason, their top 100 was not filled out, so I'd imagine he's in the top 100. He needs to work on his command a little bit more, I guess. But he is a 6'7", triple digits fastball, very Randy Johnson-esque, I guess you would say. Very nasty slider, but he's had a number of shoulder injuries so far, so they could potentially move him to more of a less stressful bullpen role, stressful on his arm, I should say. Nick Allen is another name to look out for. He's a second base shortstop, number 3 on the team in terms of the minor leaguers. All the makings of a Gold Glove shortstop. Projects more as a 8 or 9 hitter, though. He doesn't have, he's not a great hitter. Solid amount of speed, absolutely no power. So you would think maybe Andrus is more of a fill-in until Nick Allen is ready. And then Dalton Jeffries, who I said is the number 4 on the team. He's the complete opposite of AJ Puck, actually. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's a pinpoint command guy. He doesn't walk barely anybody. A low 90s fastball, a strong changeup that really just drops off the table. They say he's more like a Kyle Hendricks type pitcher, just with a few more ticks on his fastball, because Hendricks only throws about 88 or so. But Joe, you mentioned it. The over-under for the Athletics is 86.5.
Well, this is so easy.
I'm
going under because I don't like their pitching. I know it's a weaker division and they could probably make the playoffs. I'm gonna say 82. Go 4 under. Yeah.
Well, man, and I didn't even say that there's really no one in this lineup who projects to be over a 250 hitter. They they have everyone being 247 or lower, and I
Derek,
could
that's a
see it
problem.
because
It's a problem.
that they could get shut out. They might have a ton of power, but they could get
Yeah,
shut out a lot,
right.
and that just really scares me. I love the bullpen. Still, this bullpen is still very good, but it's really going to go on a lot of that young pitching, and they're really untested, an untested rotation. I'm going to say slightly under as well. I think we're all on the same page here, whether that's 83, 84, 85, but I would say slightly under the 86.5 for Oakland, which
Derek,
now, Joe,
the time has come. I know I was going to
brings us,
introduce them for you, Derek.
well, yeah, that'll bring us to the Seattle Mariners. And last year, Seattle finished third at 27-33. Coach Scott Service comes back for his 6th season. He is 348 and 360. Some key additions for the Mariners this year: Rafael Montero comes over from Texas. Chris Flexen actually came over, starting pitcher from Korea, I believe is where he was. Kanan Middleton from the Angels, relief pitcher. James Paxton comes back to Seattle after stopping in New York for a few years. And then Ken Giles was also signed to a 2-year deal, although he is out for the full year for Tommy John surgery. Very minimal in terms of subtractions. D. Strange Gordon is now gone, as well as Yoshisha Hirano was there. He barely pitched. That's why I don't even know his name. He was injured pretty much the whole time. So
Good job.
a
Good job.
relief pitcher. So, Joe, when you dived into the Seattle Mariners, what were some thoughts that you had on this team?
Well, right away, the leadoff hitter I know a lot about. I watched him play in Reading in Double-A. He's JP Crawford's a pretty good defensive, slick fielding shortstop. I was very excited to watch him come up, and he just hasn't hit the ball as well as people expected. I was happy to see he had 24 RBIs, though. Mitch Haniger, who had a terrible, as you told me earlier, I didn't know this, but ruptured testicle. That's got to definitely leave a mark. But he injured all last season. I mean, that's tough for him. He'll be back with a vengeance. Kyle Seager had a big year last year, knocked in 40. We talk about him a lot. I can't wait to see Kyle Lewis play, even if I see highlights. 28 RBIs, 11 home runs, and I took him in fantasy, so I'll be all over him this year, Derek. Ty France looks good. The designated hitter hit 302 last year, 13 RBIs. He could be a name to watch. I did read about him. Jared Kelenic is somebody to really keep an eye on. The Mets outfielder they got in the Diaz deal. And guys like Evan White and Dylan Moore have to step up. But this is a very interesting team. And I might surprise some people, including yourself, where I have them in the over-under. And then the prediction got our prediction thing on Wednesday, Derek.
Okay.
So what do you say about your team and the lineup they possess?
Well, so I will say, if nothing else, I think they're going to be entertaining this year at least. And from what I've heard in spring training, they are the most energetic and the most just ready to play baseball than they've been in years. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah, when you have a lot of young blood in there, that's good. Only one guy really over 30 years old, and that's Kyle Seager. So,
right.
So I will say, I think they're going to probably lead off with Mitch Haniger, which I think is pretty good. I think Crawford's probably going to be the opposite end. He's probably going to hit 9th until he can show he can hit around 270, 280, which I don't know that he ever will.
Yeah, right.
Dylan Moore was a very great surprise last year. He's going to be the starting second baseman. He can probably steal over 20 bases, hit about 15 home runs. He was a very good player for us last year. I expect him to probably hit maybe in the 2-hole even. Kyle Lewis is kind of the big name. He's Probably going to be starting in center field, I would think, or maybe even left field, depending on if Taylor Trammell is the starter
That's the
and
name.
the center fielder.
Yep.
But Kyle Lewis obviously won the AL Rookie of the Year, so I'm very interested in him this year. Kyle Seager, great veteran presence to have there, although I would think if he starts off strong, he might end up being traded away. You mentioned I'm very interested in Ty France. He was someone who was just kind of thrown in a deal with the Padres, where we traded. What did we trade away? Nola and so Ty France was brought in there, and he may be a part of the future. He's only 26 years old. You mentioned he hit very well last year. Not a huge home run hitter, but he hit 300. Probably someone who can get you around, 17, 18 homers and be a 270, 275 hitter. Not great at catcher. Tom Murphy he's an all right catcher. Evan White and Crawford, two guys who actually won the Gold Glove last year, Joe. So very interested to watch those two defensively. And then, yes, Taylor Trammell is someone who's going to be in the starting lineup because Kelenic was sent down. So he's someone who's very speedy. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit, but I'm very interested to watch him going forward. And then the bench guys, Marmoleos, Haggerty is probably who won the utility spot. Nothing great there to talk about. When you look at the rotation, Joe, I mean, so again, they're going to go with a 6-man rotation, just like the Angels are. More because I would say they got a couple young guys. They need to look at their innings, but also they bring in that someone like James Paxton, who has a ton of injury history. So maybe you don't want to overstress him. Kikuchi is someone who came over from Japan last year, or I think was that last year was the first year. I think maybe it was the second. But he was kind of used to a 6-day rotation as well. Marco Gonzalez is going to be the number 1. He's been pretty solid for them so far. Bringing in Paxton to go with Kikuchi and Justice Sheffield for all those Yankees fans. He was, I believe, actually in the Paxton deal.
Yep.
So,
yep.
And then Justin Dunn is the last name I'll throw out. He was also in the Mets deal. The Mets are never going to live that deal down, trading for Cano and Diaz and giving away Justin Dunn, who's going to be one of the starters this year, and Jared Kelenic. Joe, when you looked at that rotation, what did you think? Where does that compare, would you say, to maybe the rest of the rotations in the division?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Paxton is a guy that I think the Mariners rely heavily on veteran leadership and giving them innings if he can stay healthy. Marco Gonzalez is definitely the ace, and sounds like he had a good ERA last year, but almost 3.10. And then Kikuchi needs to get his ERA down because it was up at 5. So that needs to come down. Flexen, I don't know a lot about. He didn't even play last year.
He was in Korea.
Like you said, he was in Korea. Kind of like our Matt Moore, who's in Japan. So that's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Justice Sheffield needs to show why the Yankees didn't want to trade him, because they didn't. They really balked hard at that trade, but they knew they had to get something with Paxton, and they did it. Justin Dunn's been a guy I've heard a lot about. He could be an interesting guy to put in there. I like this rotation. I just think Kikuchi and Flexen have to do something.
Yeah, and Marco's
because
not
Paxton and Gonzalez. I wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Marco's not a dominating rotation guy. He's going to be probably a 4 ERA, 3.8 ERA.
Right. An average pitcher.
What are you getting out of Paxton? Kikuchi, I know, is adjusted his rotation a little bit, or his wind up a little bit, and added a few more ticks to his fastball. So he could be a sneaky, really good pitcher this year. Because he was in Japan, he just hasn't really showed it yet here. And all of these guys have all the potential in the world. Justice Sheffield was a first round pick. Justin Dunn was a first round pick. Gonzalez was a first round pick. So, and then if you look at the depth, there's not a ton out there. Nick Margasevich was brought over from the Padres. He's going to be the long relief man. So he's someone else who they may potentially throw in there. Eric Swanson, another name who was brought over from the Yankees. He could be a long relief or spot starter guy. I'll mention another one in the prospects in just a little bit. Joe, when we look at the bullpen, I mean, Rafael Montero is probably going to be the closer. He closed for Texas for a few years. And then you may recognize Kendall Graveman, who actually was one of our starters last year before he got injured. So now they're moving him to high leverage situation role, and he's getting up to like the upper 90s with his fastball. So he's someone very interesting to look at. What are a couple other names you have down there?
Well, you said Montero, the closer. He'll be important.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned Middleton early. I know he's a guy that will get outs for you and probably back ends of games. Swanson stuck out. Swanson's ERA was actually over 12 last year. That's high. He needs to bring that down. That's going to be important. Brennan had a good year, 3.68. Sorry on these first names. Ramirez had a 2.61. So some of these, it's kind of like helter skelter, I feel like. You know, some guys are good, some guys are a little high. But Seattle's that up and coming team that I think you have to watch out for. That's how I look at the Mariners.
Yeah, a couple other guys I'll mention. They actually brought in a Rule 5 pick from Detroit, Will Vest, who I think he has one of the best changeups I've ever seen. It completely just drops, and
they need that.
Crazy. And then I'll mention Casey Sadler is another guy to look out for, and Miskowitz is their left-hander out of the bullpen. Of course, Ken Giles, Tommy John surgery, so he'll be out this year. Joe, we couple of prospects, and these are some big name prospects if there ever were any. Jared Kelenic is where you start. He is an outfielder. He is number 4 in the top 100 of MLB.com prospects. He is going to be an all-around player. He is going to hit around 300, 290, a good amount of power potential, hard contact to all fields, strong arm, plus speed. They say he's pretty much only left-handed. A Bryce Harper comparison.
Wow.
A 2015 and on Bryce Harper, not like the complete stud that he was supposed to be, but someone that's gonna steal some bases for you, hit for average, someone who's gonna hit a bunch of home runs. That's who they're saying Jared Kelenic can be compared to. Logan Gilbert is a right-handed pitcher at number 33 in the top 100. He has a great 4-pitch mix, big, physical, 6'6" guy, mid-90s fastball with life, hard slider. He's really been focusing on his changeup lately. He's got about a number 2 ceiling, and he's probably he's definitely going to be up at some point this year. And then Taylor Trammell is an outfielder. He's number 100 in the top 100. Draws a lot of walks, good bat speed, excellent base runner, steals a lot of bases. Good defender, but he doesn't have a very strong arm, so that might be his reason to be more of a corner outfielder. And a back end hitter is where he's going to be. Joe, the number for Seattle is 73. 73 wins over under for Seattle.
I like their lineup, especially if Haniger stays healthy. Like you said, that was an unfortunate incident. If JP Crawford could take a couple steps forward and hits the ball, Kyle Lewis sounds like an exciting player. And depending about Kalenic and Trammell if he comes up. Derek, I'm going 5 over. I'm going 78. I like this team. I actually think they're going to be better than Anaheim, Derek.
We've been on par every time this. I'm gonna say slightly over. I don't think they're gonna push for the playoffs or anything. I think that is 1 year away. I think next year is when they can really start to push for a playoff spot finally.
Yep.
After 20 years, but
I think a long time coming.
The youngins are coming up. They have a couple Gold Glovers, very balanced offensively, and they're having fun. As I mentioned, a team that's having fun out there is not something to be shooed away. That's
right.
Well, if you're not having a good time out there, you're not going to win games. So
exactly, you got to have fun playing.
I will just say real quick. I will ask you before we jump into the Rangers. That's the second team in the division that has a 6-man rotation going. What are your thoughts on the 6-man rotation? Do you think that's beneficial? Because that's obviously a spot lost, a potential bench spot or a bullpen spot, but it gives you some extra time to recover. What are your thoughts on the 6-man
Can I say to you, that's a great question. Can I say to you, it depends on the team and their needs?
Absolutely.
Because I say that because I look at the Phillies and I'm like, I don't want Vince Velasquez as a 6th man because I don't want him anywhere near a rotation. But and I finally got my wish this year because we have Nola, Wheeler, Eflin, and then you're going to have Matt Moore and Chase Anderson who deserve to be in there. And neither Vince is in the bullpen. But see, like the Mets, do you want a 6th guy when you have DeGrom throwing every 5th day?
Very true.
And that's the point. Like if you have good enough starters, yeah, come on. It's easy. Strasburg and Scherzer, you want them every day. Unfortunately, we can't do that because we don't want to throw the guy's arms off. But I will say, because we're still talking about pitching, thank you for telling me about Ken Giles, because I have to let my father know as he's sitting over here now that Ken Giles is out for the season. So it'll be great to know that because he drafted him last night. Tommy John surgery. So anyway, giving him that bad news. But Derek, we're going to wrap it up with the Rangers. Yep. So let's go for it.
Let's finish it up with the Texas Rangers, who last year were the bottom dwellers, the number 5 in the division. They were 22-38. Coach Chris Woodward is in his 3rd season. He is 100-122. Some additions for the Rangers this year: Chris Davis, David Dahl, good outfielder, decent outfielder from Colorado. Mike Fultonowicz, who was released from Atlanta last year. Kohei Arihara, I believe he was brought over from Japan. Ian Kennedy, and then some subtractions. Lance Lynn is gone. Rafael Montero obviously went to Seattle. Elvis Andrus obviously went to Oakland. Corey Kluber didn't get a ton of innings with them, but he was on the team last year. Shin-Soo Choo and Danny Santana is another one who is gone. Joe, when you looked at Texas, what did they show to you? Or do you think they can move from that 5th spot? Or are they destined to be the number 5 in the division, do you think?
I think it's going to become very apparent that they need guys like, right away. I don't know who Isaiah Kiner Falefa is.
Falefa. Kiner Falefa.
Thank you, Falefa. Yeah. He hit 280 last year. So that, if he does that again, then that's good for him. that's really good. Odor struggled. I saw he only hit 167, but he knocked in 30.
I just wanted to say, actually, thank you for reminding me because I would have forgotten.
Sure.
Rougned Odor, this is actually some sort of breaking news. Just happened 3 hours ago. Was designated for assignment. He is no longer. He is not going to make the team. So
I have one for you later in our closing, but I got a
moving
good
on
one.
from Odor and also Jose Leclerc, if he's anywhere, he is having Tommy John surgery.
Oh
so
boy,
he is
another
not playing
Tommy
this year.
John. Oh
So
boy. Okay.
let's throw out those two things. Yeah, continue.
All right. Well, I do think that Gallo could be big. He needs his average to go higher. He knocks in runs. He's like a 28, 29-year-old guy that's kind of floundered, right? He hasn't done a lot.
Yeah.
27. Nate Lau had a big year last year, or 2 years ago, I should say. He only knocked in 11 last year. They need like Lau, Solak, Calhoun. Like, who are these guys? Like, really? Like, there's nobody on this team that scares me. They're like the Rays, but the Rays are a lot more talented. So Tavares is okay at the top, and Dahl's really going to be good part for them. And Derek, I don't know about you, but their pitching is absolutely horrible. I mean,
well, so let's start here.
Sure.
The strengths I have for Texas is Joey Gallo. Oh, that's all I wrote. Joey Gallo. That's about it.
They got nothing.
They have some young guys coming up, but Joe,
it's bare, Derek.
In my opinion, we have who do we have? The Pirates are going to be at the bottom of their division. Who probably Colorado, Baltimore, Detroit,
Washington.
I don't think any are as bad as
this
Texas.
Is bad.
I think Texas
really
could be the worst in baseball this year.
Chris Woodward might get fired for his team being so bad.
And by the way, they are going to be the only team to start the season allowing full occupancy in their stadium.
Of course they are.
They are going to be one of the worst in the league. Dave Dahl is a nice piece, but he doesn't really stay healthy too much. A lot of these guys are like 26, 27 years old. So it tells me where the heck have they been? Are they just guys who all of a sudden they just don't have anyone else? So now they're
figured it out.
Play.
Yeah.
Man, there's not a lot here. Nate Lowe was brought over from the Rays. Ronald Guzman probably going to DH. One guy I'll talk about him in a bit actually. Leody Taveras, he's a pretty exciting player that they can look out for. But
Derek, 4 guys in their starting lineup hit 100 last year, like 190 and lower. Like 4 guys in their starting lineup.
And I will say Joey Gallo is just not. He's not he's not an average hitter. He's going to hit maybe 40 home runs, but he's not going to hit for average. He's a 210, 220 hitter, and that's just
trade him though. He's not even. Don't be like I don't know. They're seriously like I can't wait to hear their over under.
When you look at their rotation, well, Kyle Gibson, he's been a solid contributor wherever he's been for quite a few years now. Kohei Arihara is coming over from Japan. So what are you going to get out of him? That's kind of an unknown.
Right.
I have Jordan Lyles could be in the rotation here. Mike Foltynewicz, who was cut from the Braves last year.
He's talented, though.
They were traded. Dane Dunning was traded in the Lance Lynn deal. So that seems to be the starting 5. What does that tell you, Joe?
Foltynewicz is a name I look out for just because he really is talented.
Yeah.
He's a very good pitcher. The only reason I know how to say that name is because I've had to endure him with the Phillies and Braves. You just say Foltynewicz. It's a hard one.
That's why they call him Folty, right?
Yeah, Folty, exactly. I think he's an Astro prospect too, actually. I think he came up with
the Astros. That's correct.
Yeah, I thought so. Kyle Cody at a 1.59 ERA. He might be somebody to watch for. I've never heard of the guy before. And then Taylor Hearn is another name I guess they could throw out there. But Derek, this team might be the worst team in baseball. Like, I'm not talking just about the West Division. I mean, like everywhere except for the Pirates. Maybe I'm not seeing this team doing anything. What about their prospects?
I mean, Gibson
there
is a
first.
decent,
Yeah.
decent arm. I don't know what you're gonna get at. I honestly don't know a lot about Arihara, so I'm interested to watch one of his starts to see what he's gonna give. Dane
Gotta give
Dunning, I'm going
something.
to talk about in a little bit, so he could be a
Okay.
potential for the
Yeah.
future. But any decent players that are going to show up on this team are going to be traded because they're
Yeah.
for the future. They're for the
Right.
future. So
Right.
I have to think people like Gibson, and if Fulton Owens actually comes and pitches well, he was probably going to be traded. It's kind of without
Gallo
saying.
too, if somebody wants him.
I would assume, yeah.
Nice left-handed bat.
Couple guys in the bullpen. I have Matt Bush, who is now 35 years old.
Yeah, I remember
his a potential closer option. Maybe Ian Kennedy. I really don't know any of these other guys. I'll look up some of their stats.
Hergot, or he's a guy I've heard of.
And
the Rodriguez, always a Rodriguez around.
You mentioned Taylor Hearn, 17 innings, 3.63 ERA. Man, Wes Benjamin, John King are a couple other names, but yeah, the bullpen is pretty bad as well. I mentioned Leclerc is going to have Tommy John surgery. He would have been probably the closer this year, but he is out. Let's be positive here, Joe. Here's a couple names to look out for the Texas Rangers this year. Sam Huff is a catcher, number 78 overall.
Wow.
He very strong 6'5" frame, but he is a huge another Joey Gallo for you, a huge home run hitter, but strikeout hitter. He all or nothing. But for his size, he's actually pretty quick, they say, and a strong arm. So very decent catcher prospect. Dane Dunning is a right-handed pitcher, as I mentioned, probably going to start in the rotation this year. Number 91 overall in the top 100. He actually has 5 pitches. A low 90s sinker, a low 80s slider are his best pitches. Keeps hitters off balance. Very high floor, you would think. Not someone who's probably going to be a top of the rotation guy, but someone who's going to give you solid innings. And then Leody Taveras is an outfielder. He's number 4 on the team. Efficient switch hitter. He's going to hit a high batting average. Probably about a 15 homer guy. Once he's in the starting lineup, he's going to be one of the fastest players in the league. He's a great base stealer, great defensively, plus arm in center field. Right now he has that's Willie Calhoun is another guy to look out for. He has a strained groin right now, but no timetable. Joe, the number for Texas is 67.5. What do we think about Texas?
Going 59.
Yeah, I think
I don't like them at all. I seriously don't like them at all.
Par in every single one of them.
That's awesome.
Lower as well for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
Not enough there.
No, there's just not.
They have some young guys come up, but for now, not really. And that.
Wow.
Joe, for
we did every team there.
Yes.
Wow.
Houston Astros, LA Angels, Oakland Athletics, Seattle Mariners, and Texas Rangers to finish out the AL West. That is our final division. This was a lot of research, I must say.
Yeah, we did a lot of reading. My eyes were hurting at night. Yeah. It was interesting though. It kind of brought me back to when I didn't know about a team and I wanted to go read about them, or I just wanted to maybe just read about baseball. And I always say that it's my favorite sport. It's not even close. And this just shows you that if you can read about all these teams and at least try to have a conversation about them, you can say that you love the sport. So that's what I got out of it. And I hope our listeners enjoyed us talking about them with our guests. Thanks to Phil Gunther, my brother Mike, and Phil Engel, of course, to all their input. And we enjoyed that. And I have to say, though, I cannot wait for Wednesday, Thursday, and then after, because we're rolling right into the season. And It's going to be fun on Wednesday to talk about our predictions of the teams and, just getting right into it. So looking forward to that. And listeners, please go back and listen to our shows and continue to follow us. Twitter, Facebook, podcast platforms, as Derek always says.
Yep. So, and as Joe said, yes, thank you to our guests who jumped on to help us with the NL East and the NL West, AL East, and then we took a couple on ourselves, but we thank them for coming on. And if you missed any, they're all out there. They're all out there on Facebook. They're all out there on YouTube. Feel free to jump and check those out. The normal spiel. Everything is out there on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. It'll help us out, as well as all podcast platforms. Listen to us there, Twitter, Facebook group, and email us at timeout, derekandjoe@gmail.com. Thank you, as always, everyone, for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Stay safe and take care.